There are moments in life when it feels like the world has conspired against you. When people with hidden agendas think they can manipulate, deceive, and destroy what God has purposefully placed in your hands. They plot in the shadows, whispering lies, sowing seeds of doubt, and building traps. But what they do not understand is that God's perspective is higher than human cunning. He is the architect of justice, and his vision cannot be thwarted by mere human schemes. You see, when people attempt to orchestrate your downfall, they are often blind to the very power that is already assigned to your life. They do not realize that their evil designs are like arrows shot into the wind. They will not reach their target because God Himself is the shield around you. Every strategy they craft, every lie they spin, every betrayal they plan, God has already turned it into a stage for your triumph. The very thing they intended to bury you with becomes the platform on which your victory is displayed. It is important to understand that evil is temporary, but God's righteousness is eternal. When someone plots harm against you, the natural reaction might be fear, anger, or despair. But the Spirit calls you to trust the invisible hand that is orchestrating the visible triumph. Do not try to fight every battle in human strength. Stand in divine authority and watch as the intentions of the wicked collapse before your eyes. What they meant for shame, God turns into glory. What they meant for humiliation, God transforms into honor. What they intended as a public embarrassment becomes a public revelation of His power. This is the mystery of God's justice. He does not always confront evil in private. He exposes it in full view of the world so that everyone may see His hand and acknowledge His sovereignty. The enemy works in secret, but God works in light. He does not just neutralize evil. He displays it for what it is. The schemes that were carefully plotted behind closed doors erupt publicly, revealing the weakness, the deception, and the failure of those who sought to harm you. And in that moment, the people around you witness the triumph of divine intervention. And your faith becomes a testimony to the world. You must learn to celebrate God's timing. The enemy may think he is winning when the storm rages around you, when lies are spoken and reputations are attacked. But God's hand is never late, and His timing is never wrong. That storm is not a signal of defeat. It is the prelude to a public display of victory. When the truth comes out, when the deception collapses, the applause is not for human effort, it is for God's divine orchestration. And you standing firm in integrity will be the living proof that the righteous never perish, that those who are called according to God's purpose cannot be destroyed by human malice. Do not curse the hand that tried to harm you. Do not waste energy on vengeance. Instead, remain faithful. Keep your vision clear and let God's glory be revealed. Every failed plot against you is not random. It is deliberate divine choreography designed to lift you higher, to display His justice, and to let the world see that when God is involved, evil cannot prevail. The enemy's plans are like sand castles against the tide of God's purpose. They may seem impressive for a moment, but they crumble under the force of His authority. So rise with confidence, walk with courage, and speak with faith, knowing that every attack aimed at you is being turned into testimony. Your life is not a battlefield of chance, it is a stage of divine destiny. And the world will witness in undeniable clarity that what the enemy intended for harm, God transformed into a public failure. And in that very failure, your victory shines brighter than anyone could have imagined. There is a profound truth in life that many failed to understand. No matter how intricate the plots of men and women, no matter how carefully they strategize, there exists a power far greater, a vision far higher, and a wisdom far deeper than any human mind can fathom. When people set out to manipulate your circumstances, to undermine your progress, to twist your reputation, they operate under the illusion that their cunning and secrecy can outmatch divine oversight. But this illusion is precisely where their weakness lies. Because God's perspective is not limited by walls, whispers, or shadows. His gaze penetrates every hidden motive, every secret plan, and every darkened room where schemes are being hatched. What they plot in secrecy, God watches with clarity. When hidden agendas are exposed, They intend in deception, he sees in truth. Understand this. Human schemes are always constrained by time, by knowledge, by circumstance, and by imperfection. Men and women can only see what is in front of their eyes. They operate with assumptions, biases, and incomplete understanding. But God's insight is infinite. He perceives the beginning and the end, the cause and the consequence, the intention and the outcome. Every move they make, every strategy they devise, every trap they lay is already mapped within his sovereign plan. And this is why the enemy is always at a disadvantage when they attempt to thwart the life God has designed. They may believe they are working in the shadows, but shadows hold no secrets from the Almighty. Consider the arrogance of plotting in ignorance. Those who seek to harm others often rely on manipulation, lies, or force, thinking that their control over circumstances guarantees success. Yet in their arrogance, they fail to account for the unseen hand that governs the universe. The hand that turns rivers in a new direction, that causes the wind to shift, that orchestrates events in ways too complex for the human mind to comprehend. Their schemes are like tiny pebbles thrown into an ocean, insignificant against the waves of divine providence. What they intend for destruction, God converts into evidence of his power. What they craft for humiliation, he transforms into honor. Their efforts may be loud, visible, and seemingly dangerous. But compared to the subtle, pervasive, and unyielding work of God, they are feeble and destined to collapse. Faithful living requires the understanding that you are never alone in the battles that others attempt to wage against you. God's oversight is constant. It does not waver when the world doubts you. It does not falter when circumstances appear bleak, and it does not require human permission to operate. Those who attempt to undermine you may believe that their plans are invisible, that their plots are hidden behind clever words and deceitful actions. Yet God is the great revealer, and he sees not only the acts themselves, but the hearts behind them, the motives concealed beneath the surface. Nothing escapes his attention. Every intention, every plan, every secret hope of the enemy is already catalogued in divine wisdom, and he alone determines its outcome. There is power in recognizing that human strategies, no matter how brilliant they appear, are limited. They are temporary and fragile, subject to failure because they cannot operate outside of God's will. Divine oversight is not constrained by human perception or circumstance. It is constant, unyielding, and omnipresent. This knowledge should embolden your spirit. It should give you courage to face adversaries, to endure betrayal, and to withstand opposition. You do not have to exhaust yourself trying to anticipate every move of those who wish you harm, because God has already anticipated, already positioned, and already planned the resolution. When men and women attempt to execute evil, they are often unknowingly participating in a process that reveals their own weakness. Their schemes are doomed from inception because they oppose a force that is infinite, perfect, and inexhaustible. Divine oversight transforms human planning from a source of fear into a stage for divine demonstration. The enemy's plotting becomes a narrative of public failure, and your life becomes a testimony of unshakable victory. Every secret scheme is a hidden instrument that God can redirect. Every act of malice is an opportunity for divine intervention. Every attempt to manipulate your path becomes a stage for him to display his sovereignty. You must internalize this truth. No human cunning can outmaneuver God. No agenda, no plot, no shadowed conspiracy can escape his awareness. He is the vigilant guardian over your life, the orchestrator of destiny, and the ultimate judge over all intentions. When people attempt to strategize against you, do not panic, do not fear, and do not retaliate in desperation. Stand firm, move forward with integrity, and trust that every secret plan is being monitored, measured, and ultimately neutralized by divine oversight. Your life is not at the mercy of human schemes. It is under the care of the Almighty. What others intend for harm, God is already transforming into glory. What others attempt to conceal, God is already revealing. And what they design as their triumph, he is already turning into their failure. There is a principle in life that many fail to grasp. The very schemes designed to break you, to humiliate you, to undermine your purpose often become the very instruments of your triumph. This is a divine paradox. What humans conceive in malice, God transforms into glory. When someone plots against you, when lies are woven with meticulous precision, and when betrayal is planned with cold calculation, do not despair. The universe is not random, and God's purpose cannot be subverted by human intent. The trap set to ensnare you, the shadow cast over your path, is not the end of your journey. It is the stage upon which your victory is revealed. Think about it. People expend energy trying to diminish you, believing that they hold the power to determine your fate. They manipulate, they deceive, they attempt to control circumstances to fit their agenda, but their plans are like clay in the hands of a master sculptor. God takes what was meant to destroy and molds it into something beautiful, something triumphant, something that reflects His glory. Every act of sabotage, every whisper of deceit, every intention to harm you is an opportunity for God to display His power, His justice, and His sovereignty. What He intends for your defeat becomes the canvas upon which your success is painted in bold and undeniable strokes. Consider the mindset of the enemy. They strategize, they plot, and they assume victory before the battle even begins. They are confident because they see the immediate effects of their schemes, the temporary confusion, the momentary setback. Yet they fail to understand that temporary chaos is a tool in the hands of the Almighty. Every obstacle, every attempt at manipulation, every shadow of deceit is designed to be redirected. God takes what was aimed at your destruction and converts it into evidence of His favor. The very plan that was meant to obscure your purpose is transformed into illumination, highlighting your strength, your resilience, and your divine calling. When someone designs an evil agenda, they unknowingly create a stage for God to perform His miracles. The betrayal, the lies, the attempts to tarnish your reputation, they do not disappear. They are visible for the world to witness. And when God intervenes, when He shifts circumstances, the same events that were turning opposition into opportunity, intended to humiliate you, now highlight His hand of deliverance. The public sees the collapse of the plot, and in that collapse, they see the power of a God who defends, who restores, and who elevates. The enemy's plan, once a weapon, becomes a testimony, and what was designed to destroy becomes the reason people recognize divine intervention. It is essential to understand that victory in life is not always about avoiding opposition. It is about transforming opposition into a platform. Every attempt to weaken you, every strategy meant to contain you, every calculated move to suppress your destiny is an opportunity for God to display His wisdom. What was meant to intimidate becomes the ladder to ascend. What was meant to discourage becomes the fuel for resilience. What was meant to shatter you becomes the moment where your faith and integrity shine most brightly. Faith requires the belief that nothing is wasted. Every challenge, every betrayal, every evil plan against you is recycled into a tool for triumph. God's power is not passive. It is active, intentional, and precise. He orchestrates outcomes in ways that humans cannot anticipate. What seems like defeat is often preparation. What appears like humiliation is often revelation. And what looks like failure is often the blueprint of public victory. When you stand firm, when you refuse to compromise your integrity, when you walk faithfully despite opposition, God amplifies your life. The schemes designed to hold you back instead elevate you before an audience of witnesses. The very evidence of human malice becomes proof of divine sovereignty, and the lesson is profound. Those who intend evil against you are unwitting contributors to your legacy. Every plan they create, every word they speak, every action they take is a material that God can transform into a monument of victory, a showcase of His intervention, and a testimony to the world that no evil can prevail against the righteous. Therefore, do not despair when faced with scheming, plotting, or betrayal. Instead, see every challenge as a divine opportunity. Let faith guide you to recognize that what others intended as a trap is in reality a platform. What was meant to oppress becomes the stage for your rise. What was intended to humiliate becomes the spotlight for your honor. God does not just cancel evil, He converts it, elevates it, and displays it. So the World sees that when he is in control, every plot against you becomes a public declaration of your victory. There is a principle that the world often misunderstands. Evil may seem powerful, in the moment, loud in its voice, and aggressive in its attempts. But righteousness carries a permanence that malice can never achieve. Human schemes can create temporary setbacks, fleeting pain, and moments of confusion, but they cannot alter the course of destiny that aligns with God's purpose. Those who attempt to harm, deceive, or destroy often operate with a sense of immediacy, thinking that the momentary impact of their actions defines the outcome. But eternity does not bend to the hand of human malice. Righteousness by its nature endures, it perseveres, it rises above the ephemeral chaos of evil to establish lasting victory. When you live a life rooted in integrity, in faith, and in truth, you are building something that no scheme can dismantle. The wicked may attempt to manipulate, to twist circumstances, or to tarnish your reputation, but their efforts are like trying to build a house on sand in the middle of a storm. The storm may rage, the wind may howl, and the waves may batter the foundation, but righteousness is a rock, immovable, unshakable, and eternal. What they envision as destruction becomes nothing more than a test of durability. And every trial strengthens the foundation rather than weakening it. It is vital to understand that evil is reactive. It operates out of fear, jealousy, and envy. It is impulsive and short-sighted, focused only on immediate gain or perceived control. Righteousness, however, is proactive. It is guided by purpose, anchored in principle, and sustained by faith. Those who operate in malice are limited by their own selfishness and short-term vision. They may seem to win battles, but they lose the war of destiny. They may achieve temporary victories, but these victories are hollow, temporary, and destined to crumble under the weight of truth. Meanwhile, righteousness steadily moves forward, unseen by some, unnoticed by many, but unstoppable in its trajectory toward fulfillment. Consider the contrast. Malice needs to hide. It needs to manipulate. It needs deception to maintain the illusion of control. It cannot stand in the light. Righteousness, however, thrives in transparency. It does not need concealment because it is grounded in reality and in God's justice. Even when the evil plans of others appear successful, they are unstable, fragile, and destined to fall. They cannot endure because they oppose the natural laws of integrity, the divine principles that govern life, and the eternal design of God. Malice is a fire that burns quickly, consuming itself in the process, while righteousness is a flame that lights the path, warms the soul, and illuminates the destiny that God has ordained. Enduring righteousness also transforms the perception of those who witness it. People may see temporary setbacks, betrayals, or unfair attacks and think evil is winning. But over time, the light of truth becomes undeniable. The integrity you maintain, the patience you exercise, and the faith you uphold will reveal a power far greater than any human hand. The public will witness that the attacks meant to harm you only highlight your steadfastness. They will see that the malice intended to destroy becomes a why integrity always wins in the end mirror that reflects the emptiness of evil and the depth of God's sustaining power. Righteousness does more than outlast malice. It converts adversity into opportunity, trials into testimony, and attacks into evidence of divine protection. When you refuse to respond with bitterness, when you resist the urge to retaliate, and when you continue forward with purpose, you demonstrate a strength that cannot be replicated by deception or force. Evil is temporary, reactive, and fragile, while righteousness is eternal, proactive, and fortified. Every plan to harm you is absorbed into the framework of your destiny and repurposed for your elevation. The key is patience, faith, and trust. Those who plot against you may appear powerful, but their power is borrowed, conditional, and fleeting. Yours is inherent, eternal, and anchored in principle. The storms of betrayal, the waves of lies, and the winds of opposition are nothing more than tests, opportunities for righteousness to demonstrate its permanence. Those who live faithfully with integrity and purpose will find that the attacks against them collapse under the weight of divine truth. Malice fades, schemes fail, and deception is exposed, while righteousness emerges stronger, brighter, and victorious. Never underestimate the endurance of righteousness. It is the quiet power that stands when chaos rages. It is the invisible strength that moves even when the world does not notice. It is the eternal force that outlasts every attempt to destroy it. No malice, no scheme, no